I never thought moving into a so-called dream neighborhood would end up feeling like stepping into a dictatorship. But that's exactly what happened the night a private security guard leveled an assault rifle at my daughter in our own driveway. Sounds insane, right? But that was Crestwood Heights. Gated, manicured, advertised as luxury living. On paper it looked perfect, but behind those gates it was something else entirely. I'd just retired after 30 years in foreign service. I'd seen coups, riots, even stood in front of men with rifles overseas, and I thought those days were behind me. Then my daughter Claire flew back from overseas. She's with federal law enforcement. And as she stepped out of her cab, suitcase in one hand and phone in the other, this guy comes out of the shadows yelling commands like he's in Fallujah. Hands up, get down, don't move. And before I could even process it, I saw him. Ethan Ross, head of Crestwood Security, feet planted wide, rifle shouldered, muzzle pointed right between Claire's eyes. For a second I froze, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give out. Claire, though, she didn't flinch. Years of training had carved a calm into her bones. She raised her hand slow, said steady. Sir, I live here. My father's inside. You're making a mistake. Ethan sneered, didn't even blink, told her, no clearance after dark. Get on the ground or you're a threat. That's when I burst out of the door, shouting, Ethan, what the hell are you doing? That's my daughter. And for one terrifying moment, I thought he'd swing the barrel toward me. Claire stepped just enough to shield me, subtle but deliberate, her eyes saying clear as day, don't push him, Dad. Finally, like he hated giving up the power, Ethan lowered the rifle, muttering about protocols. Claire's voice was cold steel. Pointing a loaded firearm at a federal officer without cause is a felony. And I'm pretty sure you don't have the right license for that weapon. For a flicker, his face went pale, but he puffed himself back up, spat out something about private property, and stalked off. The neighbor's blinds shifted, eyes peeking but nobody daring to step out. And I'll tell you, in that moment, standing in the glow of my porch light, I realized something that shook me more than the rifle did. This wasn't a safe neighborhood at all. It was a stage, and we were living under performers with power. That was the first act, the hook. And things only escalated from there. The man behind it all was Victor Hale, the HOA president, always in crisp polos with the HOA logo, tablet in hand, quoting bylaws like scripture. His wife, Denise, ran the social committee, smiling sweet while slicing people down. Ethan was their enforcer, a former cop pushed out for excessive force. And together they kept the place looking like paradise while bleeding it of freedom. Claire called it for what it was, not an HOA, but a regime. The next days were a barrage. Violation notices piled up in our mailbox, trash bin a few minutes late, lawn a quarter inch too long, porch light the wrong shade of white. Petty, ridiculous, but it was intimidation with a smile. I'd catch Ethan idling across the street in his black SUV, sunglasses on even at dusk. He'd smirk and say, just keeping the neighborhood safe, Mr. Turner. Don't want accidents. Claire would shoot right back. Careful, threats from security can be considered harassment. Want me to call it in? Watching him sputter was the only satisfaction we got in those days. But what struck me most was how the neighbors lived. Nobody lingered on sidewalks. Curtains twitched, but never opened. Everyone smiled politely, then rushed inside. It wasn't living, it was performing for Victor and Denise. And I started to realize, the fear wasn't just mine, it was systemic. One woman, Mrs. Lang, came to us trembling. She'd asked at a meeting why dues had doubled in 5 years. Within a week, she got 3 fines, her weeds too tall, a lawn ornament out of code, trash bins left visible for an hour. She whispered, if I keep pushing, they'll ban my grandkids from visiting. Claire leaned in, calm and steady. That's how regimes survive, Mrs. Lang. Fear. But fear only works until people stand together. And I saw it, that flicker of hope in her eyes. Then came the turning point. Jessica Monroe, one of the board members, came knocking one night, nervous as a rabbit. She whispered that Victor hid financials even from her. Contracts to shell companies, missing money, shady expenditures. She slipped us a flash drive. I can't keep looking away, she said. Claire combed through it like she was back in the field. Dad, she told me, this isn't just HOA greed. This is organized fraud. From there, it became a war of patience. We built a case, stacking every bogus violation, every threat, every missing dollar. Claire reached out to Marcus, an old FBI contact, and to Officer Ramirez, one of the only local cops not under Victor's thumb. Together, they laid the groundwork for a sting. The night of the emergency HOA meeting was like stepping into a courtroom. Rows of folding chairs, Victor at the center of the table, Denise at his side, Ethan looming just behind. Neighbors sat stiff, fear hanging heavy. Victor announced new bylaws, giving security unrestricted access to every property. If you've done nothing wrong, he smiled, you've got nothing to fear. That was my cue. I stood, voice steady, and said, tell that to the resident who had an assault rifle shoved in her face. Gasps, whispers. Ethan stiffened. Then Claire rose, phone in hand, and tapped the projector. Suddenly, the wall lit up with footage from our hidden camera. Ethan aiming his rifle at her head. The room went dead silent. Claire's voice cut through it. This is your head of security, illegally armed, threatening a federal officer. Ethan exploded, shouting it was doctored, but Jessica stood, folder in hand, and declared, and here are the financial records. Missing funds. Shell companies. Fraud. The room erupted. Neighbors shouting about playgrounds never built, roads never repaired, money vanished. Ethan reached for his weapon, but before he could act, the back doors swung open. Officer Ramirez in full uniform, and Marcus flashing his badge. Victor Hale, Marcus said, calm but firm. You're under arrest for embezzlement and wire fraud. Ramirez moved in on Ethan, charging him with assault and unlawful possession. Ethan tried to resist, but Claire was faster. One twist, one slam. Cuffs on his wrists before the crowd even caught their breath. And then it happened. Applause. Not nervous, not polite, real applause. Years of fear cracked wide open in a single moment. Neighbors stood, shouting their grievances, pointing fingers at Denise, who screeched about lies and conspiracies as agents seized her files. But it was over. Their reign had collapsed in front of the very people they ruled. After that, Crestwood Heights changed. Jessica was voted interim president, Mrs. Lang vice president. Fees dropped, finances went public, kids rode bikes without an SUV tailing them. For the first time since I moved in, it felt like a community, not a prison. And Claire, well, she soon left again, back to her assignments overseas. But she left behind more than memories. She left a neighborhood that finally remembered what freedom looked like. And me? I sit on that porch sometimes, bourbon in hand, thinking about it all. I've seen tyranny overseas, and I've seen it here at home. And I'll tell you this, the scariest regimes aren't always in palaces or deserts. Sometimes they're right down your street, hiding behind bylaws and fake smiles. So now I'll throw this to you, what do you think? Were Victor and his crew just greedy bullies, or something worse, something systemic about power when it hides behind rules? Drop a comment. Tell me if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare or a community power struggle, and if you think justice was really served. And don't forget to share this story, because the more we talk about it, the harder it is for little tyrants to thrive in silence.